Hello, it is still Thursday, the 6th of January 2022, and I am continuing to read Bliss Afterlife, a story I started in 2006, and Book 1, Bliss Afterlife, was finished in 2017. I'm now at chapter 85. This is a story about a reincarnation. Bliss and Alexei. Chapter 85. Bliss was with Alexei, baby girl. Bliss, I shall be born a little early. This will change a lot, right? Because I shall be born in England. I'm so excited about it all. I almost feel impatient, although that's probably already a bit too human. They both laughed. You know, it is strange, isn't it, how it feels so exciting to re-enter a body or grow a body. Lydia, you will be a beautiful girl. It was the first time that Bliss had named her. I love my name. I do enjoy my time here. It is wonderful to know that I shall always return in my mind here when I quieten myself. There is still so much learning for me to do in this realm, but all is so much clearer here. I shall remember some of this and some lessons. This is what is said here, and it will make things easier. Will it, though? Bliss was smiling. So many philosophers and masters have talked about the way you create your own reality, even inside a body, but you will find that a shift in the overall consciousness is progressing slowly. We are nearing the year 2012, and all the realms and all over the galaxy it is known that December will mark the ending of an era. You will be small when the new era starts. You will be part of the millennials, the generation growing up with fast communication and much more gender equality and gender confusion, a wider aspect of race and color, and more common sense, which will allow you to be more the way you really are in soul and body. A lovely family with lots of understanding. I think you have given yourself, if not an easy task, a fun one, for sure. You will be the first grandchild, combining the Far East and the West, with a big heart, wanting to make a positive impact, and this time around, with more support. You will have a smooth start, although you shall not escape the obstacles. Bliss laughed. Will you be watching over me? Lydia sounded suddenly more hesitant. Yes, I will, of course. I shall guide you, myself, and through the first few years, very closely. You will be a clever little thing, and you will move the whole family a giant step forward. You will empathize with the wounded and anguished. Memories of some of your old, rather dark past will help you to clear these old wounds from others, and you will have a natural way of dealing with people. With your mother being familiar with the holistic healing, her acupuncture has given her great insight. You will be furthered rather than hindered in your development, and you will find like-minded souls who resonate with your high frequency. Most of this is your wish, is it not? Yes, I know, and I like it when you put it into words. I have shared much with my group, and making the blueprint has been such an exciting task. Many of us will come back. We shall meet over time, and it makes me feel easier to know that many hands listen, that makes the lessons done, and many have already been done. Bless you, Lydia. I wish you a wonderful life and an easy birth. Thank you, Bliss, and send me feathers. I know I shall always know you. Listen when I see them. This is not our last meeting of this kind, my dear. You'll have some more time to grow your body. Your mom is feeling good now. Her anxiety has gone. She will love her extended time in England. Her relationship with Anna makes her feel good. She loves your father. You will grow without further complications. Bliss smiled at Lydia. She was grinning. And for this time they parted. Much growing to do, and Lydia found herself inside the womb again. Much noise and laughing. She felt her mum's happiness, went into a dreamless sleep to let her body do its job of growing. Chapter 86. David and Leni. David and Leni were having an afternoon in her club. He had decided not to go back to London before his trip to see Susan. Maisie had gone back earlier to work at a private function, taking pictures at a wedding. She was over the moon to get some work unexpectedly, and this was Leni's regular day for a swim and a sweaty session in the steam room. He had decided to go along with her. He was amazed that she was still doing her weekly yoga sessions, although today they only visited the pool and the spa area. As long as he could remember, his parents and his aunt were keen sauna and swim people. He liked the sauna. Whenever he had the chance, he would go swimming back in Australia. They were sitting in the hot steam, talking. I love the heat, his aunt was saying, and a cold shower and cold swim afterwards. Gosh, Leni, do you remember when we all went to the nature beach when how old was I? It was on an island off the coast of Germany. We stayed in this old thatched cottage, and we all went to the beach. It's vague, but I have a picture with us all on the beach, thankfully, all in towels, as I was amazed to see these naked bodies everywhere. Leni laughed out loud. Oh yes, I remember that. I had been to Sweden for the first time that year before, and loved the whole sauna and swimming habit they have over there. Your mum had a friend in Germany, and she had given us that house to have a week's holiday for free. I remember how excited we all were. You were 7 or 8. We all took the ferry from Harwich to Hamburg, I think. Or did we drive and took the car to Calais? I cannot remember. I do remember, though, that we were all taken aback when we got to the nature beach. When I then lived in Sweden for many years, where sauna means no clothes, I got used to it all. Coming back here, where everyone wears swimming gear and the sauna or steam room was, again, quite strange. Isn't it funny how quickly we settle into what we ourselves consider right or wrong? I remember totally loving swimming naked. David had forgotten that his love for swimming without trunks was born way back then. He remembered feeling a bit embarrassed, his aunt and mum without a stitch on. He knew his dad naked, but he also remembered that after the first couple of hours he got bored looking around. He got together with a whole group of children of his age, some were a bit younger and a couple already 11 or 12. They had so much fun building this huge fort. They kept coming to the same spot for a whole week. His dad had also built a little fort for them, with walls of sand, where his mum and aunt were able to lean back and read their books. They always took a lot of stuff, he remembered. His mum loved having coffee in a flask, and they had a whole box of food and cold drinks, and the whole day was spent on this beach. His new friends were also there on family holidays. Some had arrived, some were only there for a day and then went back home. After their 2 or 3 weeks holiday on Sylt, the name just fell into his head. Sylt, he almost shouted. His auntie laughed. Yes, of course, Sylt, I remember now. I was there only that one time. We had so many laughs. I got to know a couple of the other parents. A lot were German people on holiday, but there was one English couple. Although your dad used to play the harmonica, do you remember? And there was a guy called Kurt, who was an amazing violinist. We had this wonderful party on the beach, remember that? With a fire. There were a lot of people with guitars and a harmonica. I remember an accordion. You kids loved it. It was far too dark for us to see any of you. I think we all got quite drunk. We had a barbecue. I do remember. In fact, we kids all had great fun. I remember we were dancing in the dark. We had these flares, you know? I still love this sort of thing. I often organized get-together, all of us on the beach back in Australia. I almost said back home, but I have to say that I feel very much at home here in England again now. I'm off for a swim. David got up and his aunt settled back for another few minutes of sweating. Leni loved being by herself in the steam room. She generally came on Thursdays, met friends at the yoga session, and they all had lunch afterwards, but she loved coming at irregular times sometimes. Often she had the steam room to herself, and ever since she discovered this wonderful feeling of her body doing its job of detoxing itself, she's done this for decades. She was hooked after the first time. All she had to do was drink water and contemplate here by herself. For her it was aligning to herself. Through troubled times she remembered sitting and talking in her mind to wisdom, calmness. It was always soothing to her, and she was glad that she got into this habit. While still living in Sweden, she had a Russian friend, and she knew the banjas. Banja was important in Russia too, to detox and regenerate, and sometimes to talk and discuss all sorts of matters in this place, where it's slightly dark and hot. Her Russian friend was always there on a Thursday, and she was going to look out for her, to introduce her to David. She had not that many visitors anymore. Eva was fun to be with, and they often had a good laugh, steaming away. They had celebrated Eva's 80th birthday a few weeks ago, and she had been talking about David coming here. She was just going to get up when the glass door opened and Eva came into the steam room. "Hello, my dear," she embraced Leni, who was standing just about to leave. "Oh, so good to see you, my dear. A Merry Christmas to you. Sorry, I'm sweaty. Just about to go out for a breather. I'm here with David. Wait here. I want you to meet him. You go in. Wait for us." Leni was so pleased she saw David swimming the lane. She pressed the button for the cold shower. Every time she had to brace herself, she wiggled around under the icy spray and jumped straight into the pool. Now it felt great. She was glad that she could still do this and not be worried about her heart or any other organ in her body. She loved swimming up and down the lanes, but waited for David at the end. "I just bumped into Eva, my good Russian friend, and I want to introduce you." "Is she single?" David asked, a mock smile on his face. "Yes, she is, a widow, and I think my best friend around here, but I think at 80 she might be a bit out of your age league. Brain-wise as well." They both laughed. "I look forward to meeting her. Lead the way." They dived under the ropes, separating the lanes, and walked into the steam room. It was just the three of them in the steamy, dimly lit warm space, and he was glad he had decided to go along with his aunt. It had been quite a while that he had a good sweat, and he was surprised how fit his aunt's friend looked. Some wrinkles, but she had such lively eyes. "I'm glad to meet you, David, finally." Only a very slight accent. "I hear so much about you and your girls, and when your poor wife was ill, I feel I know you." They all sat down to talk, and it was funny how easy it felt sitting there with these two ladies in their swimming costumes discussing life and living. They were both quite funny, and it was obvious they had known each other for some time and quite well. "How did you two meet?" David could not remember when his aunt had or ever mentioned her. "Oh, about 15 years ago, is that right, Leni? We both went to Tai Chi class. I had just retired, and your auntie was already a regular. We hit it off straight away. We have fun, don't we? I worked so hard when I came to England 40 years ago with my husband. I knew no one and no English. He was English, you know. I had been in St. Petersburg, and he saw me dance. I was quite a good dancer for a while. He was a little younger than me. We caused quite a furore when we got married here in England. In those days it was difficult to leave. My parents were furious, although I was already in my 30s then. Anyway, we were so happy. I never regretted all the hassle. He died 12 years ago. It is lovely for me that your aunt met him. We did quite a lot together back then, didn't we, Leni? I remember my aunt telling me about your holidays. I thought it was lovely that my aunt could travel along with you. She really liked your husband. I just remembered, wasn't he into astrology and all these things? Ah, Paul, he was a marvelous man. His aunt took Eva's hand. 1 in a million, wasn't he, Eva? He loved my tarot readings. I loved listening to him talk about the planets. He adored you, Eva. You were his twin soul, and I think you were his, my dear. She held Eva, and they both had tears in their eyes. He did not even make it to 60. I was most annoyed, thank you, Leni, because you made me keep my sanity when he died in an accident. How dare he be so careless? He said he did not want to be an old man. Eva threw her hands up. Well, he never was an old man, she laughed. David was quite used to his aunt mocking death, but it made him laugh to see Eva with this theatrical exclamation. His aunt had been very helpful to him when Margaret was getting worse and worse. He felt completely helpless at times, and the way she beseeched God in the end only made him wish he could help her or make her feel happy in any way. He started reading the Bible to her. She was not interested to try anything else but what the doctors told her. Chemotherapy and another chemotherapy. After the first one did not work so well, she was feeling wretched. He had always been so well, but in the last year of her illness he had excruciating back pain, and he felt so old. In the last 2 days of her life they had talked. She suddenly felt that she had never seen the beauty in herself. She would never let the girls just be themselves, like they would not let herself just be herself, like she would not let herself be herself. Always plans and activities, church on Sundays, school reports, the house had to be immaculate. David loved having friends around, all playing music and share a joint discussing life. Once Trudy was born, Margaret was having none of these gatherings anymore. He spent a lot of time building his business. Thinking about it, they had really not seen each other that much. When Maisie was born, he was already running a successful building company. Margaret had her hands full with the girls. She loved the activities with the children, and often they had other kids around the house. He came home to dinner, and if there had been no time to cook, they went out. Only when she was dying did they talk very deeply. They were both really glad that their daughters were well. They knew how to agree on a good thing, and she was so peaceful when she passed over. "David, are you still here?" Leonie gave him a shove, which shook him out of his reverie. "God, what is it with me? You two got me thinking of Margaret, and I think that I want another swim." "You sit here in the hot spa, and shall we all go and have lunch afterwards?" "How about it, ladies? I have agreed to meet Susan this evening. Getting quite excited." "Sounds good to me. You go on. We see you about 1 o'clock upstairs in the cafe." He left the ladies chatting in the steam room and pressed the cold shower button. It made him almost shout out loud when the water hit him, and he only stayed because he knew his aunt was watching through the glass. Chapter 87. Melanie arrives back home. Melanie was glad to close her front door and drop her coat and suitcase. It seemed to have taken ages to get back here. She looked at the kitchen clock and it was just past 8 p.m. She had left her grandmother's place mid-morning, and although the flight was less than 2 hours, it had taken all day to get here. She put the kettle on and picked her suitcase up. She loved her flat and switched the lights on in every room. She heard a cat jump off the windowsill, and that made her feel so happy. "Hello, my little one. How was your little holiday from me?" "I had a wonderful Christmas. And yes, I shall feed you now. Priorities, I understand." She picked up Pippa. Hearing the loud purring, the cat was vibrating. She opened the pouch and Pippa pushed her hand, almost stroking along it. Melanie always took it as a thank you. "Ooh, I'm so pleased to see you, little Pippa. I bet you are not really that hungry. I know Mrs. Brown feeds you more than you need." Her downstairs neighbor was a fan of Pippa's and often left her back door open with little treats for her in a bowl. It had been very easy when Melanie asked her if she could feed her for the duration of her trip. Mrs. Brown didn't even need to come upstairs. Pippa just knew to go down hers for food. They had tried it a couple of times when she'd gone to London, and the cat always knew. Her neighbor was in her late 70s and not very well. Her legs had given her problems, and Melanie knew she loved the visits from Pippa. New Year's Eve tomorrow. She was waiting to hear from Tony. Just thinking about him made her even happier. She checked her phone, but no text so far. She put the kettle on and decided to have a bath and put a wash on. She ought to check her mail, and suddenly she felt back home. All she needed was some lovely, gentle music to get on with stuff and settle into her space again. Chapter 88. At Holly's. Susan and Holly were sitting at the kitchen table. They had been out most of the day and had lunch in a lovely little place on the high street. This was so nice, Holly. It's been absolute ages that we did this. Just the two of us, walking the beach, having lunch, and a glass of wine or two, which reminds me, fancy a little bit of bubbly. It's not the real McCoy, but Chris has already been shopping for our little New Year's Eve party, and I got a case of this lovely jubbly stuff. I don't mind at all if I do. Susan got up to get them a couple of nice flutes. She knew where they were, although she rarely used them. They had belonged to their mum, and both the delicate design and shiny glint made them always a special thing. Holly quite expertly opened a bottle, and they laughed when they heard the gentle pop, and she poured them both a glass. Let's toast to a Happy New Year's celebration. I have not seen you this excited for a long time. Actually, the last time was when your kitchen extension was finally underway. They both laughed. There had not been much excitement with the opposite sex for Susan, and there was always so much going on in the refuge. She had little time for romance, and it probably did not help that the relationship trouble she was faced here daily was one of the main reasons of its existence. Gosh, yes, I've forgotten what butterflies in the belly feels like. He's already on his way now. I reckon he will be here in an hour or so. Yes, sounds good. Here is to a Happy New Year celebration. They chinked glasses carefully, and she was so pleased to see David. She'd had a little crush. Oh, and Holly was so pleased to see David. She'd had a little crush on him too, but he never had any eyes for her, and she would have never upset her sister anyway. In fact, they never mentioned it. He had been so interesting and handsome in those days, and she thought there were probably quite a few young ladies who had fantasied about him back then. Chris was out shopping with his Christmas vouchers and was due back as well. Holly had made a soup earlier, and they would eat together. Once the guys arrived, they drank in silence. Holly got up to put the radio on. They both looked at each other when Simon and Garfunkel came on with Sounds of Silence. Hello, Darkness. They looked at each other and smiled. One of their favorites, and they used to sing it together in the garage almost 40 years ago. But closing their eyes, they both found it easy to get the feeling, and only when they heard Chris opening the front door did their minds come back into the room. Hello, hello, my ladies. You look fairly chilled. Is there a drop left for a thirsty man? He kissed Susan and took Holly in his arms. I had a very successful shopping trip, my darlings. Got myself 3 new books, and how do you like this shirt? He pulled a beautiful turquoise linen shirt out of the bag. It looked great, but an unusual choice for Chris. I like it a lot. Did you pick this all by yourself? Try it on. I want to see what it looks like on you. I've never seen you in turquoise. Yes, I picked it myself. I've heard so much about David since you arrived. He raised his eyebrows at Susan. I feel I have to be a bit more with it, and that colour struck me. I shall whiz upstairs and have a shower and get changed. When are you expecting David? Within the hour, yes. Go on, let's finish the bottle. Here. Holly shared the rest between the 3 of them. I want to get changed too. How about you, Susan? And I shall finish this chapter here. It continues chapter 88.